What's up, boys? You know the drill. Season 2 Community Tier List Update, the CTC. You guys know the 5 returning members, Bishox, Elsoon, Allie, Dion, and Twitch Proffer. Joining us for this season will be Ohaimi, Mickey-san, SGM Maverick, and TL Yami. Thank you all so much for your input and your help. Let's get into the tier list. Oh, baby! Look at it. Phantom Knights, Tier 1, Tier 2, Heroes, Mech Knight, Tier 3, Code Salamangreat, Infernoid, Rogue Deck, Medolce, Dark Magician, Starry Knight, Code Mech Knight, Gokis, and Odd Eyes. Let's talk about the decks really quickly. Phantom Knights. Fun fact about Phantom Knights, this came down to one vote. It was even whether this would be a tier 1 or a tier 2 deck, and then the last CTC member to vote voted in favor of tier 1 for the deck, which is really interesting because I think it's going to be super interesting to watch Phantom Knight as we go into Saturday's battle phase. Because I think it could be swayed either way, whether they're tier 1 or tier 2, which essentially would just bring Heroes and Mech Knight up to tier 1 with them rather than them getting dragged down. Because look at this breakdown. This is the top 32 breakdown. This right here is the overall breakdown. You can see Phantom Knight was the most entered deck. Phantom Knight was the most top deck. But it doesn't matter because they all fell by the time we reached top 8. With the finals ended up being a Elemental Hero mirror match. So super interesting to see what will happen with Phantom Knights. I don't think they prepared very well for the arrival of Heroes and other decks in the metagame, so we'll have to see if they're able to adjust going into the best of 3 tournament this weekend, or if they will give up their sole tier 1 position and have Heroes and Mech Knights join them. Heroes, with their new buff, they have Super Poly. Guaranteed Super Poly is extremely powerful, able to counter Phantom Knights as well as any other deck by just being able to Super Poly into any one of their elements. Very, very strong with them. And then, of course, with all their back row spam. Mech Knights are fully back, baby. Some people even think this deck might even fight for the best position in the deck. The only thing that keeps the Phantom Knights higher than Mech Knights is the consistency. Phantom Knights just don't brick right now. So there you go. Mech Knights, they're here to stay. So you'll probably see them in KC Cup. Code Salamangreat, nothing really new to add to this deck. These two decks have found homes in one another. They cover each other's weaknesses. Everything I said last week still kind of remains, and it's just a solid tier 3 deck. Really high skill ceiling. Good for them. Infernoid, now with Mech Knights and Heroes kind of back, they're just struggling in tournament play to really do a whole lot. People don't even play them as much as they used to. Drops to tier 3 from tier 2 last week. Rogue deck, Medolce, really good OTK deck. Dark Magician, very, very strong, has been popping off in tournaments recently, being able to top deck back row that you can use right away during your opponent's turn. Very strong. Starry Knight, that may be a DLE exclusive because we get a whole bunch of people that are just playing the crap out of Starry Knight and doing very well in them. Even in Damage Step BO3 side deck event, we still had a Starry Knight go extraordinarily far in the tournament. Really good against dark decks, including, Phantom Knights. So there you go. Code Mech Knight. Some people have preferred to play Code Talkers with Mech Knights. Mech Knights is a very small engine. You can pretty much put it anywhere. But it's not as powerful as just playing Mech Knights or just Code Salamangreat. So have to put that down in Rogue. Gokis also went very far. I think they made top 8 or top 4 in Damage Step. Even with a bunch of limit 3s, they are still able to pull off the OTK combo, just not as often as they were able to, and not as safe as they were able to, but can still do very well even with all of the changes that they've received. And then Odd Eyes. Odd Eyes will eternally be a rogue deck. Being able to just shit out really strong effect monsters that your opponent has to deal with, the Doom Rider or any rank 4 or anything, is always just Odd Eyes' specialty, and you always have to be prepared for it in the rogue meta. Power rankings. These are best of 1 tournament power rankings. That means every point you see on here is how many times this deck has won. Power rankings are reset at every damage step. So this is the final rankings for all of the decks in Season 2. Going into Season 3, we're completely wiping the power rankings. You can see Phantom Knights at the top with Code Salamangreats, Mech Knights, and Starry Knights tying at second with 3 points each, 3 tournament wins each. And you guys can just follow all of the other decks on there. Best of 3 tournaments, damage step, and battle phases. You can see Phantom Knights heavily ahead of everyone at 52 points. This is the one where we give points based on top 4 finishes. But I think more interestingly is how new the hero skill is, and they are already at 21 points. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Season 3 goes with the power rankings. We may even see a world where heroes end up ahead because they have a ton of points for how little they have been in the metagame. And of course, Mech Knights, Code Mech Knights also on there as well, with a little bit of Rose Dragon. A lot of those points for Rose Dragon, I think, were early in the season. We haven't really seen much Rose Dragon within the remainder of the season, but still a remarkable amount of points either way. Now we have some comments from the CTC. I'm going to read them for you guys. Twitch Proffer says, I think Goki tier 3. Goki can match the main event Goki skill and expendable die. I believe Odd Eye's strength can be raised to tier 3. So there you go. He believes in Goki, and Odd Eyes have the potential to reach tier 3, currently sitting in Rogue category. TL Yami, in this current format, I feel there isn't a true tier 1 deck, as most mechs and PK are tier 2 with a few tier 3 decks, and the rest either being Rogue or not on the list at all, just due to recent results. And I already said, if there's no tier 1 deck, that means tier 2 just gets moved up, in my opinion. Mickey-san says, we are in a varied meta. Phantom Knights is in the side format is tier 1, since it has the wide possibility to use the techs and losses from very few decks. The talkers in a side format suffer a little, but still remain very strong. Heroes is the real revelation, proven to be able to play against everything. Same mech, Infernoid, Madolche, I see them in the meta, but they have something less than the other decks, meaning they are more rogue. Allier says, I find the meta pretty cool. For me, we have 6 decks in the meta. PK, Mech, Salad, Code, E-Hero, Noids, Infernoids. Madolche, PK is just one step ahead. I think they will get hit with a limit 3. We have a lot of rogue decks. DM has been getting good results lately. The decks in the last box look good with the skills, but we have to wait a little longer to see their place in the metagame. I agree. We've been getting some wild results. I think Resonator has a really good chance to probably make it somewhere on the tier list. But as of right now, you just see them all over the place. I think by Saturday, we'll have a better idea. Duwan says, Phantom Knight and Mech Knights are currently the 2 best decks. I agree. However, the power level difference between these 2 decks and other decks isn't that huge. With a Hero Alliance skill buff, Hero proved that it deserves a spot on the tier list. Salamon Great Code Talker is a very powerful strategy, especially in its no side deck format, so I would put it at a tier 3. Since Mech Knight became more and more popular, it's hard to justify Infernoid being on the tier list. They also performed very poorly in tournaments, and I think they should be moved to the Rogue category. About other Rogue decks options, I see Dark Magician as one of the stronger Rogue picks right now. Mech Knight, Code Talker, and Odd Eyes are also decent options. There you go. Then we have Ohaimi, who actually has a 2-parter. He wrote a whole essay, which we love him for that. Phantom Knight's consistency is still unrivaled in the current meta, but the deck doesn't really appreciate the high intensity of flippers running around in the moment. So you guys might have noticed a lot of Canadias, a lot of Book of Moons. Yeah, it's rough for an Xyz deck. Mech Knights probably still have the highest ceiling, but both its consistency issue and the rise of popularity of heroes prevent it from being tier 1 in my opinion. After the skill changes, heroes seem like a very good deck to me. Only a few skills in this game are a +1, so basically with no strings attached, and out of those, even fewer give you a cards of the quality that Super Poly has. That in combination with Liquid still being an insane card makes heroes one of the tier 1 decks to me. Salad Code Talkers are the deck with the highest ceiling out of the good decks we have available to us at the moment. With the right combination of engine cards, this deck is even able to play through 3 flippers, which I can't say about any other deck on the list at the moment. Unfortunately, Salad Talkers kind of struggle with outing a big Infernoid body, though through 1 Seer and Super Poly being everywhere doesn't particularly help the deck either. But its reasonable matchups versus PK Mech and good matchups versus a lot of rogues make it deserving of tier 3 in my opinion. Infernoid is still very good. They have 1-for-1 now to get the Decatron more consistently, which should help going second, especially, but other than that, not too much changed for the deck. Resolving Feast is still borderline auto win. Inside of Ease removal is a bane to every deck you can think of, except for maybe Metaphys. Personally, I'm a big fan of Atundel. Sorry, I'm terrible with the Infernoid names. You guys already know that as well, because he helps in games quicker, and the grind of this deck isn't infinite by any means. Consistency in terms of live feast access is probably the deck's biggest issue at the moment, but the relevant matchups seem to be mostly in favor of Infernoids, bar probably Mech Knights. Tier 1 as is, Tier 0 if you have Feast APK. So oh Jaime, he's like, nah man, Infernoids, they're Tier 1, they're good. So there you go. So there is the tier list for you guys. We also have the CTC's comments on screen. I personally think that is the most important part when you look at a tier list. The people that made the tier list, what is their opinion? Why did they put and vote on the decks? So that's why we put them on screen. Please let me know if you like the change. What do you guys think about this tier list? I think it's extremely solid. I'm extremely interested in seeing how Saturday goes, because it really does feel like, I would say, Phantom Knight Heroes and Mech Knights are the 3 best decks. And then Phantom Knight is only a little bit better because they're more consistent with their skill. Chances are, but if they keep performing like really bad in tournaments, then those 3 decks are tier 1. and then we'll have to decide the rest of the tier list, because I don't know, it'd be a huge mess at that point, because we'd have to realign everything. That's all I have for now. Thank you guys for watching. Till next time, peace out.